Ah,
Yeah.
yeah, look at that. Okay. So thanks for coming, everybody. My name is Ruby Philippa. I am a production accountant and also a first assistant whenever somebody needs somebody who's got a good, strong back for you. Um, and Cash flow. um, the reason I wanted to talk about this is that I've talked to a number of production accountants who know what it is and know what it should say, but they don't know how to put one together. And I'm going to be honest with you up front, it's not simple. There's a lot of piecemeal little math that you have to do step by step. But it is fairly easy, even though it's not a short process, it's a long process. So what I'm going to do is, what I did was I created a sample cash flow spreadsheet to share with you based upon a budget that I made up and day out of days that I made up. So I'm not sharing with you a budget and I'm not sharing with you a day out of days. I'm just sharing with you the cash flow spreadsheet. Um, and I'll talk to you about the process and how I get the different things in the different places. So that being said, um, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Make sure everybody can see this. Can everybody see this? Yeah? Okay. So um, a cash flow is, of course, it incorporates your budget, but it also incorporates other items. For instance, union deposits or other items that are not really necessarily a part of the budget, but you do need to show why you're spending that money on a certain date by a certain, and how much and what it's for. So what I do is I take the entire budget and I import by hand because there's no way to import it otherwise. I create a spreadsheet that shows, if you can see what I've done here, I've got the codes in the first column, the titles of the codes, and then the total budget in the third column. And so you want to go through and you want to create that. Sorry if this is going too fast for everybody. I made a kind of long budget just to show that, it's like a real budget. And then at the bottom, I've also added in the contingency, which is not necessarily a part of the budget. You can consider that part of it or not. Also, the union deposits. For instance, in this example, the IA bond deposit and the SAG bond deposit, because we know that you'll have to pay those at some point prior to production starting. And those will be part of your cash flow. So then once I've input all of that information, then I create columns for each week of pre-production and each week of production and all the weeks of post-production. So you can see, and I just used 2019 as an example, but I've got, shoot week 1, shoot week 2, shoot week 3, and so forth, and then into post-production. And then what I do is, I think it's a good idea to also have an ending column so that when you do parse everything out by your pre-production weeks, your production weeks, and your post-production weeks, you make sure that at the end, the number that is at the end matches the number that's at the beginning. Because we're human and we make errors. We can make errors, and your finger can slip, or you can do some bad math, and you're like, oh wait, why is this $2,000? It was supposed to be $20,000. Oh, I see. My finger slipped. So it's just a good safeguard way to make sure that the numbers at the end match the numbers at the beginning. Does that make sense? Yes? Anybody give me a yes? Okay. All right. So then what I do is, so I've created the budget in the spreadsheet, and I've created the different columns for every single pre-production day or pre-production week, production week, and post-production week. And then I've created that end column to make sure that my math is correct. Then the first thing that I do to start parsing out the numbers correctly into each week's column is take um, the easy numbers first. For instance, if you have cast that have a flat rate and that you know they're going to be working 3 weeks, including travel, and you know the dates that they're going to be working, then you can parse out their payroll by, let's say it's a $75,000 agreement, flat rate, and they're going to be working 3 weeks. That would be $25,000 per week, and you would put their amounts in the specific columns for them. So, for instance, if one actor is going to be there not the first week of shooting, but the second and fourth week, then you would enter the amount for them in the second, third, and fourth week, broken out. Same thing with directors or producers. Some, often they'll have an agreement where it's something like a certain portion at the beginning of prep, a certain portion at the beginning of production, a certain portion at the end of principal photography. So you can enter those amounts in. So those are easy. And then what I do is I take my budget and I go page by page, line by line, and I'll start doing the math. Well, the other thing is, I'm sorry, you'll also have to have your day out of days, even if it's a working day out of days and it's not the final, at least you'll have something to go off of because they know roughly when they're going to be doing specific stunts that week, or car scenes or pool scenes that they need special stunt players. If there's crowd scenes, which although we know these days we're not doing crowd scenes, but um, uh, let's say you know that your SAG background and non-SAG background are going to be this many people that week. So you go through your day out of days and your budget, and you parse out. I know that in shoot week 2, we're going to have 150 background that week or 250 background that week. So I know what the cost is for that week for background, and from the budget, I'll parse that out into the second week. And if I have 50 the first week, I know what that cost is in the first week. So this is where the math starts coming in, and you're relying upon your budget, the numbers that are in your budget, but also your day out of days. So that those are the easier ones to parse out first. Your cast with flat rate agreements, your producers and directors and people that have specific timelines they're being paid certain amounts from, and then knowing what your stunts and your car rentals and your background and things like that from the day out of days, putting those in. Then once those are done, then you can take your day out of days and your budget and you start going line by line, page by page, and going through every single item. I'll know that, for instance, the story rights, the line producer will tell me those are due on such and such a date. And so I'll know to put that in on one column. But as you get down into the crew, for cast, we know that there's going to be certain day players or certain people who are coming in because of the day out of days on this week or that week. So we know to put their pay in on those specific weeks. And then you get down to the crew. Let's say you're talking about craft services. We know that they have 2 days of prep and all 5 weeks of production and 1 day of post. So looking at your budget, knowing what the agreement is to pay them, you'll know what their 2 days are worth, and that, to the amount to put in that 5th prep week for them for that line, and then the amount for their weekly pay in every shoot week, and then their 1 day of post or 2 days of post or whatever it is they get, you'll put that amount in on that line. So it is a lot. At this point, it starts becoming a lot of looking and making sure that you're doing the math right, and looking and making sure you're doing the math right, line by line by line. You need to have a lot of coffee or a lot of tea or whatever it is that keeps you going, and hours. You'll need hours to be able to put this together properly. Um, but then what's good is when you have that end column to make sure that you've parsed out your numbers properly, you know, the 1 day of prep and the 4 weeks of or 5 weeks of production and the 1 day of post, all of that, item by item by item. Um, then you can double check your math at the end and you'll know that, okay, this part is done. I've entered everything. This is the hardest part, is doing all of that little piecemeal math work. Then what I do is I then create a different tab for every week that, here's the deal. This is your cash flow. This is what you're taking to the producers when you say the week ahead, this is how much money we're going to need next week, and this is why. They don't need to see, I'm not answering my phone right now. They don't need to see this entire spreadsheet. You don't want to give them too much information because they just need to see what's right in front of them so they can see what it is specifically that you're asking for, and they can approve or pass it along as the case might be. So what I've done is uh, for every single column, I've created a different tab on the spreadsheet. And what I do is I take the entire, the first two columns, which are the codes and the titles for those codes, and I copy and paste those into every tab. So if we take a look at this, I've got 140301 supporting A, or no, let's go to the top, sorry. 1101 script. I'm not going to take the amount, but you know, we can see down the you can look down and see the codes and the titles. I copy and paste those for every single tab for every single week ending. Um, and then what I do is, so you can see I've done that, those first two. And then what I do is I copy and paste just the draw for that week. And you'll see that it's not a lot for, you know, every week. It's not every single, you're not doing a draw or you don't need to pay everybody for every single week. So for this first week, for instance, it was just $105,095. So I've copied and pasted that information over, and we scroll down to the bottom, and there's the same total. Because this tab is what I'm going to copy and paste into either a PDF or another spreadsheet and give to the producers the week before to let them know this is what we need for next week. And hopefully they'll get us the money before, you know, things are due, payroll and things like that. So the other thing that I do is I create a uh, little running tab at the bottom here on the right, where let's say you've got 3 different investors for a film or 4 different investors for a film. You want to see what it is that, you know, the name of the investment company, and I'll show you by the end of these tabs. I'll have a number of different investment companies listed. Um, the draws to date, the authorized draw, and the total. And that just gives you a running tab so that at any time, if anybody wants to see um, just how much have we drawn so far, including this draw. And so here's the first draw request. And then let's go 3 further. You'll see that we have a number of draws that have, this is the authorized draw is the same amount that's under the authorized draw at the total of the tab of the column. But then there have been draws to date, and so there's a total. And that way they can just see what have we spent so far. So let's go to another one further along where I've incorporated other, and then we'll say there's another investment company that has put in their parts, and then you can see that their authorized draw for this period was this much. The draws to date from them were one amount. The draws to date for the other investment company were another amount, and you get the totals in the far right lower corner, which should equal the total draws, including this request, which is at the bottom of that first number column. So, um, um, let's see. And so what I do is I copy and paste this into a PDF, and then I circle the amount that is due just that time, so that sometimes producers, they don't have time to look at all the numbers. They just want to see what's the number that I need for next week. And then they can go up and they can review what is it that we're paying $850,000 for this week. Oh, we're paying for that. Oh, we're paying for that. Okay. So they can see what I've parsed out from that initial spreadsheet that had all of the weeks in it. Um, and the other thing that I do, and this is just for me, I just have a draw cover sheet that tells me at a glance what my running totals are. That's not necessary. I think that the important part is this main page and all the subsequent tabs. So, does anybody have any questions? Let me see if
I do. Do you go back and ever update your cash flow? Like, 'cause sometimes in the middle, like a producer or a line producer will ask me to update the cash flow, and I'm lost. I'm just like, like, really? Like, I don't have the time to do this, but okay, if it must be done.
Yep. No, it's maddening. But that's why I said in the very beginning that you're working with your working day out of days, which may change, and then you will potentially have to change. Let's say the crowd scene moves from week 3 to week 4, then or the car chase scene. And so you've got different stunts, you've got different car rentals, and those numbers need to move over. So you're making those changes in that main page with all of the different columns. You don't have to change. You may have to change the numbers. They might have lost a cast member and they got somebody else that costs less or more. So those items may change as well. But hopefully, and for the most part, the changes that you'll be making will be from within the columns themselves. And then once you've made those changes, then you can copy and paste that again into the appropriate column or into the appropriate tab. Um, so it's a little bit extra work, but it's not terribly onerous, not like putting it together in the first place. Once you've done it once and you've got through the entire thing, making little changes like that,
So you don't need to backtrack, you just do it going forward.
Well, you do want to make sure that your math is correct, so that when you've made changes that the end column matches the beginning column. And if you're using, let's see, I can't, there it is. If you're using these tabs at the bottom to help keep track of what has been drawn to date, I make sure that the amount that is in the lower right-hand corner, the 328,487, that shows up on the next page as draws to date, 328,487. And so, and you can see what's been drawn to date, what the authorized draw is this time, and the total. So those you'll need to make changes to, and that's from tab to tab, because that's unless you have it, your tab say this equals from the previous tab, if you're that good at spreadsheet.
Oh yeah, no, I'm totally not.
Well, I can show you how to do that sometime too. That's easy.
Hi. Hi, this is Tamara. I wanted to ask you about how you handle your IA SAG bonds and deposits. Normally what I do is I have another subtotal at the bottom where I have when a deposit is due or when a bond is due. And then over when we get it back, let's say if we get it back in post or sometime in wrap, I put the negative amount on there. But I didn't see in this particular example any deposits and how you track those on here.
Sure. What I do is I enter the entire budget in from top code to the bottom code, through insurance package, and then at the very bottom of the of the column, I enter the escrow deposits. So you'll see at the very bottom here underneath contingency, there's IA bond escrow, SAG bond escrow, and then based upon whenever it is that you're being asked to make those deposits, then those will go under those weeks. And those will, because this isn't really necessarily just your budget, this is your budget plus deposits. And so
What I normally do, let's say we get them back, let's say we get, because let's say I have a hotel that wants a large deposit and I know that I'm going to get it back in the first week of wrap. I subtract it from that week and the money that I asked for that week is less that amount. Is that normally what you do as well?
yes, absolutely. That's really quick to get those deposits back, actually, because often
It is. I just picked a week. I didn't mean that it's going to happen then, but.
yeah. But yes, absolutely. When there are funds coming back, for instance, if you have a lot of money in your cache float, and it turns out that you don't need the last amount that you put in there, you've got $25,000, then you can get 25,000 back and request 25,000 less. And what I'll do is I'll put that information in. So at the bottom where of the column where I'm asking for all of the different items, I can put, for instance, here where it says SAG bond, I might put SAG bond refund minus 100,000. And then the only amount that we're asking for that week would be 83,961.
Great, thank you.
Of course, you're welcome. Anybody else?
Ruby, Jen Cox has a question.
Sure.
Hey, I mean, I understand doing this when there's time to do this, but I just wanted to bring up the philosophical conversation that I feel like ends up being a problem with a lot of studios, which is like, do you put the money in the week you're gonna write the check, like, so a week later for payroll, like when the check is gonna go out, or, you know, the payment's gonna go out? I mean, that may be changing, you know, with so many shows doing direct deposit now. Or do you put it in the week when you're incurring the cost? That ends up always being a bit of a, you know, like a push-pull depending on the studio. And
Sure.
then also, you know, I mean, this is great if you have time to do all this detail, and, you know, and it's a good idea. But I mean, if you're doing episodic TV, you don't, like, you can do, like, the way that I see it is you do, like, you dump in your ATL payment schedules, you dump in stage payments, any kind of rent payments. See if you have a post producer who has any idea what they're doing, and get them to tell you when, like, sound package payments are due, right? Like any kind of, you know, like, you know, talk to your first about when bills come in, kind of, you know, and try and make it work. But I mean, I've worked on jobs as a first where, like, my accountant has had me cut giant petty cash checks just so that she doesn't get yelled at about her cash flow, like that we never, just so that the trial balance looks good, and then we never cash that check. And then you also, you'll deal with, a lot of times with studios, you'll deal with somebody who's like, I don't understand how your trial balance can say $10,000, but our bank account has $2.5 million. And you're like, I know, I'm not in charge of when people cash these checks, you know? So I'm wondering, look, I know the right way to do it is to do it this level, but so many of us are working on television shows. They're so fast. And is there, like, has anybody out there done anything where you're not doing this? This is so much work. Just like where, like, there's sort of a, like, quick way of or is there like a, you know, I think Axiom had something where you could import your imported budget into some sort of cash flow, you know, like, I mean, Axiom, I mean, I'm talking, you can see how old I am, but I mean, I'm just wondering, like, is there a faster way of doing this that kind of gets you a number that you can argue for with the studio without, like, you know, this is an amazing amount of work, you know? And it's great if you always work with the same chart of accounts, you could use this on everything, but it's like, it's starting from scratch on every single job, you know?
I know E.A.T.S.E was working on something before they got bought out by EP. But I
Right,
don't
which they
know.
probably stole from Axiom.
Yeah, I don't know if EP has actually taken it over and have done anything worth it.
I just opened up my budgeting thing to be like, wasn't there a thing to export into I don't remember where I saw it before.
And I
I
know
just-
Green Slate is working on one as well.
Well, then,
I mean, it's, and then,
Done.
that's the whole thing is like, I mean, I've been lucky enough to work for a studio for a long time now where they kind of don't, like, they're not being hit over the head by corporate every day. And I understand this is more of a corporate thing than it is anything else.
you had two questions, and the first question is when to ask. And that's something that I work out with the line producer ahead of time. So if we know that payroll is ending this date, even though that's not going to be paid until the following week, I'm going to ask for it by the Friday before the week that they worked, so that
I agree.
We'll have the funds by the week ending that they've actually worked, so that we'll have it before.
Right, because usually they don't fund things until the end of the week, and then you're playing this game, this dangerous game. And also, like, once the people have worked, you're going to owe the money. But then sometimes studios get mad about that, and it throws everything off.
Right, so that's something.
I just, this is such a headache, and I appreciate this, but like, this is, and I've done the thing where I've done cash flows for people, like, where I'm calculating fringe to the penny, and then I'm like, what the hell did I do that for?
Jen, that's that is what I was going to say about the first question. Was it's a really good point reference to make sure that you get clear before you even get started, so that if they are asking for cash flow and hot costs and whatever else that they might be asking for, they have to understand how much time that takes out of your day, that there's less that for you to be able to pay attention to other details. And then to answer the second part of your question, which was whether to do this or not, or how, whether to do it so detail oriented or not. Basically, as a key, I work in independent film.
Oh, you need the cash flow for that.
As an assistant, I've worked in television and studio work. And that's where you want to make sure that you've got a really good, really strong first assistant, or if you have a couple of first assistants or whatever the case might be, because if you're going to be concentrating on doing cash flow, you need to know that you can trust those people to be handling the other items that need to be dealt with. And that's something that you just need to make clear, not that you're being a troublemaker, but that you need to make clear with your line producer or the producers, here's how many hours really are in the day. And what do you want me to concentrate on? Do you want me to concentrate on this or that? Because I'm happy to do it all if you want me to, but this is what you're going to get. And you're not being a troublemaker, seriously, by saying that. You're being realistic. And then they'll let you know what's most important, hopefully, realistically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not like, everyone wants a day cost, and it's not like you can just take the day cost and multiply it by the days of the week.
Right.
It's all like, and I had a big to do at some point with like a line producer, UPM, who they were like, what's our day cost? And the first question you have to ask there is like, to save a day or to shoot a day? Because they're totally different costs. It's just everything they ask for. It's just important to be clear. I just wanted to kind of point out some of the things like to bring up the fact that there are a lot of things to discuss with people, and and see if anybody had a cheat. Because
I wish there was a cheat.
I'm looking at some.
I'm working on it. I'm like, I think. Sorry. In a perfect world, you just breeze right over them and say, listen, this is the best it's going to be, moving on, but that's obviously in indie movies where like, they're relying on funding from a bunch of different places, and they want to make sure their money's going where it's supposed to go. That can't happen. You have to have it all.
Yeah.
And then it's worth it in like independently financed films to do it this way.
So I have a tendency to make mine front heavy.
Yeah.
My cash
Do you
flow.
get in trouble ever for doing that? Do you get like calls from people?
I've gotten a little bit of backlash from a couple of studios, but I'm always saying like I'd rather have the extra money in case something comes up that we don't know about, because there's always something that comes up that you don't know about. Like picture
Yeah.
cars, somebody didn't get 5 or 6 invoices, and that's $20,000, and you're just like, oh, by the way, they forgot to PO them as well. So you have like
Or what if
no
you go
idea.
way over budget, you know?
Oh my
Like,
God.
yeah, what if you're
Yeah.
over budget or what if you're under budget, you know?
Yeah. So
Um,
yeah,
I'm
I
reading
it's
respect
just like
it.
I'm reading through some
yeah,
of the comments, and I absolutely agree that this does work better. This amount of detail does work better for independents. But as I think it was Nicole that wrote that she's had to do this, or was it Jenny?
Yeah, I've done it on, I've
Yeah,
done
Jenny
3
Gates said
different
that she had to do
currencies.
this. Yeah, and with a complete episodic cash flow for a 10 episodic series. I mean, that's and
It's
so
crazy.
yeah. It's good to be prepared to be able to do something like this as long as you let them know, whoever's asking for it, how much time that they're asking for you to put in on this. Because if it's something they're not going to pay attention to, then it might be something that it might be best to just parse out just the production weeks, or just the highest 2 production payroll weeks, or whatever the case might be, that it might be easier and more productive.
right.
um, so
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
sometimes, yeah,
this,
and what people, I'm reading the chat now. Sorry, I'm just on my iPad, but it's helpful. Yeah, it's definitely good that, in Amort you have a bunch of different things like prep and wrap, and I don't want to keep, like Derek, I think, said in here, we should maybe just have a separate one for episodic because it's more complicated. So I'm sorry, I just wanted to kind of bring it up, and I can be done now. Sorry. You.
this is Tamara again, and I just wanted to suggest something. I don't know if, I mean, we know we need this. We know we need a cash flow to do our jobs. Can't we pressure some of these different software companies? Maybe, Showbiz Budgets could do it, or, Movie Magic could do it to set it up for us to win. I mean, I think it's ridiculous in this day and age that we have to use Excel documents for a cash flow. There should be a way. And I think, I don't know if Local 161 on our behalf can say, hey guys, we need this, or if there's a way that we as individuals can tell them, but it's silly that we're doing it this way.
these are good. That's a good question. And I know that my direct contacts at both Green Slate and at EP have both said, if enough people ask for something, we will provide it, or we will work on that. So, if you push them directly and say, we really want this, and encourage all your accounting friends to do the same thing, then somebody will create that. Yeah,
Hey,
and as like Carrie Lee says, they're always soliciting that kind of feedback.
hey, it's Jenny Gates. Can you hear me?
Hi,
Yes.
Jenny.
Okay. Hi. So Media Services did have a free cash flow software for a very brief period of time. And it existed when I was doing that 10 episode period show of Nightmares. And the only problem was, like, you could import your budget. It was Movie Magic capable, it was EP budgeting capable, and it was Showbiz budgeting capable. But it was still a lot of work because you would still have to go in, and if you didn't have your fractionals correctly in your episodic, let's say you have like amort costs that are split by your entire amort by that fractional, it would just completely screw it up. So I think they sort of gave up on it and took it down, because I was actually looking for it recently and it was just gone. I'm like, guys, where is this? I need this now. And they're like, oh, sorry, we got rid of it, but we can revamp, and, like, if anybody is interested, maybe we'll bring it back. So it is worth reaching out to them and saying, hey, Media Services, can you bring your cash flow system back? Because that was, it was less time consuming than doing it from scratch, which is what I ended up doing. But it's it worked to just get the template set up. It imported all your account codes. Everything looked pretty great. All you had to do is just put in, like, how many weeks of prep, how many weeks of shoot, how many weeks of post in, like, this dialogue box that would pop up. And then it would just, like, break it all out.
Would
So-
it allow you to enter the information? For instance, this week there's going to be this many crowd, this many background for crowd scenes. This week there's going to be high stunts costs, things like
Yeah,
that.
so you
Okay.
could then go in and manually adjust anything that you wanted. So it would kind of make it like a spreadsheet for you, and then you can go in and just manipulate it. And it would keep a running tab of like how much you're off, so you can like do a comparison between what your budget amount is and then what your cash flow amount was. So then you can always check and see like, oh, something's not adding up here, so I can like go back to this account and just double check where it didn't parcel out properly.
Mm-hmm. Well, that would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I want a program to be able to do everything we do, like I get that it's still going to be work, but I feel like there could be a more efficient way of at least getting it set up. Yeah.
Well, it's aside from the 2 weeks that it took, again, it was Jenny to do those 10 episodes, which sounds like fun. Uh, um, but something like this takes me half a day to do a small project like this. So I just know that I'm going to have half a day that I'm working on this, if it's a feature. So, and I have to say that I do enjoy exercising it's like multiplication skills. My old school being able to put something together skills, even though it does take the extra time. It's something that I build into my prep period. So, and it helps me have more information that I'm able to connect with the producers about when I'm able to come to them and say, here's why we're asking for this much money this week.
Does everybody understand like how Ruby broke down the budget and the weeks and everything? Does anybody have any questions on that?
Okay.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions about cash flow, or if anybody's interested in presenting for 161 a different topic?
It sounds like that there was like a tail end topic coming off of this that needed to be talked about for episodic, which would
Yes.
be
Anybody interested in doing an episodic cash flow webinar? I mean, if you are, you can just email the accounting group. I think it's just 161 accounting at Gmail.
sounds like at least one person wants it.
Yeah, episodic cash flows are not fun, especially when they're constantly changing.
My name is
Again,
Teresa.
again,
I actually have a question.
Sure.
Where can we take a class to improve our Excel spreadsheet skills? Because I think I understand perfectly fine what this sheet is, and I understand like how to break it down, and I've done it for plenty of TV shows for the last 10 years. But my Excel spreadsheet skills, like I feel like I could just have stronger skills because I'm kind of manually doing everything. If I just knew how to work some of the formulas better, I think I would just be cranking through this.
there are plenty of online courses you can take either through any of the like Coursera, things like that, or Google even has where it's not interactive, but you can watch videos on how to create spreadsheets and how to get the different formulae together. But Coursera or any of the other online colleges like that are great for that kind of a class.
And are they free classes, or are they just like things that you just sign up for like one session? Because like this is so specific to our trade to know like when, how to put all the week endings in and all that stuff. Like I just think that it'd be really beneficial to see, especially with hot costs, how to, you know, get the formulas in. Like I said, I understand all the formulas, I understand all the math for this, but it's just, you know, becomes so time consuming to do the actual worksheet.
And it just is. It really is. It sounds like hot costs might be another uh, workshop that we could do.
Yeah, we've been trying to find people to volunteer to do them, but so far, no such luck. So if anybody that's on right now would love to do a hot cost workshop, please let me know. I will put my email in the chat, and then we can figure something else out. Yeah, we have a whole list of topics that we've been trying to get people to do, like hot cost, fringes, man days. How do you figure out a man day?
To answer the question about where to get the tutorial, I don't know that there's anything specific, or not that I'm aware of, that's specific to our craft, but absolutely somebody wrote YouTube, and that's a really great place to get free tutorials on how to create spreadsheets and how to do the different formulae. So,
Yeah, there's a lot of movie magic budgeting stuff
yeah.
on YouTube that you can
Yeah.
check that out too, if you have questions about the software.
I
I'm
just wanted to,
noticing, oh, I'm sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
I just wanted to briefly say, like, I'm relatively new to this, and the last two studios I've been working with have asking me for incredibly detailed rolling weekly cash flows for episodic TV. And it's nice to sort of attend the seminar and realize, because I thought I was losing my mind. I was like, do you guys realize what like this is? Like I could do only this. So I'm glad to like hear that like everybody else is dealing with this same thing, and it's not just me like going crazy in a corner somewhere.
Well, and John, that's why I say that it's critical that when at the very beginning, when if a line producer or producer is asking you to create that kind of information for them, that kind of report for them, that you, without complaining, let them know that here's I'm happy to do that, but here's how much time that is really going to take, and here's what is I'm going to need. I'm going to need another crew member who can handle the other pieces,
Yeah.
or something else that's going to make it so that you can get the information you need and I can get the job done humanely, realistically.
Yeah.
Within the
Yeah, it's helpful because it's tough because the UPMs, like they're not talking to the studio, right? So like the studio is asking me for this directly, and I'm like, I don't think y'all understand like what I'm dealing with, like just to get you guys money every week.
I, I don't know if Ed's here, Ed Gately, but one of the things that he's been really strong about reminding us is that from the get-go, from the top, whenever you start a new job, you need to make sure that you're really clear and concise about communicating what their needs are and what your needs are to get the job done. And so, for instance, a number of people have asked about the digital workflow, that we need to make sure that we build in that extra time to be able to educate ourselves, educate our staff, educate the crew that are going to be having to, the Teamsters and people that don't do that stuff very well. That we need to build in to the budget extra time to be able to get those things done. And this is the exact same thing. If you're going to do this, they need to know that it's going to take this much extra time for you, and they need to pay for that.
Absolutely. And that was what I was going to bring up, is that at our next town hall, which was pushed a week, if anybody might be wondering, it's not happening tomorrow. It's going to happen on the 25th.
Okay.
We will bring up like a follow-up to digital workflows. And actually, some of the questions that were asked here, I think, are great. And we can maybe ask if anybody would be interested in participating in some more education.
I would be thrilled to participate in more education, because I am finding like everything I do digitally takes between half and twice as long as it takes on a normal show. Like,
Right. And it's just going to be par for the course right now. I mean, I'm sure that this was the same problem people were dealing with when we went from like cash payments to regular check payments, and Teamsters were like, what do you mean I'm not getting cash payments this week? So, you know, everything's going to be, you know, uphill battles, hopefully, and we'll get through it.
We will get through it. Yeah. But that is why this kind of meeting is so important. We need to support each other. We need to hear each other. And everybody has said, we're not alone. You're not alone.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does anybody have any other questions about the cash flow process?
I'm also happy to answer any questions if somebody wants. Here, let me give my email.
Roxanne said, what did you say about where to put the payroll expense in the week that it occurs or the week when it's paid out? I always put it in the week that it occurs.
Yes, I always ask for the money the week before the week that everything occurs, because you're not going to get it until the end of the week that it occurs, and you need it by the following week.
Yep.
So it's good to ask for it that week and a half or 2 weeks before, week before. I just gave my email address. If anybody has any questions after this that they want to ask, I'm happy to answer those, and I'm happy to share this sample cash flow spreadsheet, and you can use the formula that are in it or not. But it's a good reference if somebody's, you know, starting out with something like this. It needs a good reference.
And if anybody wants to reach out to us with any questions or concerns with regard to accountants, the email is accountants@local161.org. I'm putting it also in the comments.
Okay.
And with regard to an episodic cash flow, I'm not really the perfect person to like sit and do an entire webinar on it. But if you want to come to me privately, I can sort of give you a gist of what I did. And you can I can even send you a template just to show you like how it looked. But it's all very contingent on what your studio needs are, because every studio wants it done differently. Like this particular one was for Apple, and they wanted a monthly projection so that I can request money on a monthly basis, which was really difficult, because if things did flip the switch, to be able to ask for more funding would take another like 2 weeks for them to process. So I would have to know like literally yesterday if something changed to be able to ask for more money. So,
and we all know how much, how quickly the producers and UPM and line producer lets accounting know when there's change.
oh yeah. So, and especially when there's so many elements with like creative, and like you have all these like studio creatives, you have all these, you know, production creatives, and they can't figure out what they need, and then people are just flipping the switch on and off, and it's an OCD nightmare.
Yeah.
So Jenny, did you break it out by weeks first and then just
Yes.
like you did?
So just to give you a basic gist of what I did, I created a summary of my pattern budget.
Okay.
And then obviously you multiply your pattern by however many episodes. Then you create another tab for your amort. And then what you do is you incorporate your amort into your pattern, like at the very bottom, so that they can see like what your amort costs are just completely combined. And there's also like pivot tables involved, which I won't even go into, but that's again, that's more for like the requesting and the tracking portion of it. So like the draw through that Ruby was mentioning, it would be more like a pivot table of like all of your weeks or all of your months of costs that you're going to need to present.
That's crazy.
Hey, everybody, I know that people are requesting that I send them a copy. If you can just access my email and send me a request, and then I'll reply with the sample to you, rather than having to write down everybody's emails, if that's okay. Please.
All right. Does anybody have any other questions? Or anybody have any other topics maybe they want us to try and find people to discuss? I mean, right now we're trying to find people for hot costs, mandates, fringes, cost reporting, if anybody's great at cost reporting. You know, if you're interested in doing one, please let us know. That would be very helpful.
Who is that asking? Is that Nicole? Seen that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I guess if nobody has anything else. Jermaine, are you still on?
I'm here.
Okay, I didn't know if you were, okay.
Thanks for attending, everybody. It was really a pleasure seeing so many faces and hearing your voices and knowing that I'm not alone and how much, knowing how much work this is.
Yes, thank you very much, Ruby, for agreeing to do this. I totally appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
All right, well, I guess have a good day, everybody. Have a good rest of the week.
Stay safe, everybody.
Stay safe.
Bye.